Pride Month is finally here, and we are celebrating a Hello Trauma Brain. As a fairly newly queer person, Pride is a new thing for me. This is going to be officially my third Pride since I realized that I am bisexual. And this is officially the first Pride episode that I make for the podcast. So I am super excited because today I want to talk about my journey embracing my queerness, how that's going, and what I have found helpful. Essentially, this episode is going to be what I wish I would have had when I came out. And I am particularly at a stage in my healing where I'm not caring so much about keeping the peace or not ruffling the feathers. And even though the fear can be there, I am feeling more and more empowered. So yeah, the time is here for this episode, and you are so invited to join me with Pride. Hi, I am Raysa, a survivor of narcissistic abuse, and I have complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and you are listening to Hello Trauma Brain, a podcast where I share my experiences living with complex PTSD. My hope is this podcast can help destigmatize mental illness and provide support to anyone diagnosed with C-PTSD who thinks they might have it or has a loved one with this diagnosis. Quick reminder, I am not a licensed psychologist or mental health care professional, and this podcast is not meant to replace nor substitute the care of psychologists, other mental or medical health care professionals. If you think you might have complex PTSD or any of the conditions or disorders mentioned in this podcast, please reach out to your primary care or mental health care provider. Any individuals or resources mentioned in this podcast are not sponsoring Hello Trauma Brain. This episode may reference trauma or abuse, and listener discretion is advised. Remember, you can always pause or skip this episode at any time. And now, let's get back to the episode. Hello, dear survivors, and welcome to this episode of Hello Trauma Brain. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you are listening on YouTube, a gentle reminder to hit the like button and subscribe to let me know this episode was helpful. I want to officially welcome any new listeners and welcome back to those of you that have been here before. I'm so glad that you are here. It means so much to me. And I wish this content didn't need to exist and that we've all had lives without trauma. But let's face it, that's not the reality. And I hope you find this helpful to your healing journey. A quick check-in. I released last week an episode with my latest guest for the podcast, Dr. Ingrid Clayton. And Ingrid is pretty much the biggest guest I've had so far on the podcast. I've had Ingrid on my wish list of guests for the podcast before I even started the podcast. And it was a long time coming. And I'm not going to lie, as the episode launch day was approaching, I was feeling a bit anxious and a little bit scared and almost like that shoe's going to drop type of feeling. I think a part of me still struggles with doing well and with succeeding. And part of it is the fear that it will place a target on my back. And I will say, out of all the things that I would have guessed could have happened that day, what ended up happening was definitely not something that I saw coming. So when the episode came out, it was getting shared more than usual in terms of my history with other episodes, and I was doing very well in terms of the response online, on social media specifically. And I was enjoying the excitement of checking my phone and opening the app. And by the app, I mean Instagram, and seeing what was happening. And it was so exciting to see people sharing it and reacting. And it's my lunch break at this point on Thursday when the episode dropped. And I am checking the new shares. And all of a sudden, I see this name that I am vaguely recognizing. And it took me a minute. It took me a good minute to realize why I recognized the name. And then it hit me. For those of you that are familiar with my coming out story, and that was episode 28, Proudly Coming Out, which I will link to the show notes for any of you that want to give that a listen if you haven't. Spoiler alert, when I came out to a community that I was a part of at the time, and I started reaching out to one of the people there that was also queer. And when I was reaching out to them, it was from a place of I wanted to have some sense of community. This person very quickly started making some really direct and inappropriate advances at me, and was essentially getting sexually harassed by this person. And I tried to have a conversation with them. That did not go well. Oh my gosh, they made everything about themselves. They started turning things around about how I am this big ass mystery and they can't figure me out. And it just did not feel good. And then things started escalating, and now other people are reaching out to tell me what they're saying to them. And I was like, okay, I got to put a clear stop to this. And I need to put it in writing to protect myself, because at this point, I felt like everything was just getting twisted, and a verbal communication could potentially lead to me not having any evidence that I've tried to communicate with this person and be direct. So I sent an email basically laying it out. I am not interested in anything romantic, and I forget what else I said because it's been quite a while now, to be honest. And the response I got back, y'all, whew, I saved it. I still have it. I still have that email. I have pictures of all the messages they sent me on WhatsApp, all the voice memos they sent, and all the inappropriate stuff they were doing and saying. It's all there. I've kept it. Part of it is I just know better at this point, and I know that with these people, you never know when you might need the evidence. So I've kept it just in case I ever need it again. And I remember that message definitely cost me a session in therapy where we dove down, broke it down, and my therapist was like, I can't believe that this is something somebody would send to somebody. But yeah, yeah, they sent it to me. I had other friends of mine also take a look at the thing, and it's just there was one consensus here, which was that this message, as long as it was too, because it was really long, it was so hurtful. And at the time, the podcast was not even a thing. It was about to be in a few months, but because there was no Instagram for the podcast, when I was blocking this person everywhere, there was no Hello to My Brain Instagram account that I had to be blocking them from. And they never made an attempt to follow the podcast. So I just, yeah, honestly, out of sight, out of mind. That person was out of my life. I never replied to that nasty message, and I never will. So I'm checking the shares, and I see that person's name, and they have shared the clip with me and Ingrid. And I have to say, I still had the reaction of the cheek. Can you tell I've been watching British and Australian shows? The cheek, yo. Like, my mind was like, how do you share that? This is not like the post was just sharing Ingrid's image and they had no idea I had this podcast, because the podcast wasn't even a thing. So how would they know, right? It's not like it was something where they had no idea it was related to me. I'm in the freaking post. You can see me. You can see me. And they share it. And I'm like, how do you do that after them? Like, did you forget what you sent me? Did you forget what you did to me? Did you forget all the inappropriate things you did? Oh, I was so confused. And the reason I'm sharing all of this is because I want to keep it real. I know that when I see other people's content doing well on social media, I'm thinking that they're probably having such a great time right now, and that must be so exciting. And I'm not going to lie, as I was working on the episode, from the moment that I even talked to Ingrid, I think something inside told me that this would probably get some attention, because Ingrid is just, I mean, it's gold. Every time she opens her mouth, it's just, how do you not want to listen to what she has to say? It was coming up, and I was not dreading it. I was excited, but also scared. And of course, I'm afraid of the shoe dropping. And here's the shoe. It dropped not even 24 hours after I had released that episode. And my first thought was, there's nothing I can do. I'm stuck. I'm gonna have to now see this person, maybe even start following the podcast or share more of the clips. And I'm gonna have to put up with it, because there's nothing that I can do. I can't stop them. I can't stop them. That's what I thought at first. That hopelessness, that was the C-PTSD. That was a hello trauma brain moment. It's that emotional flashback that says, I am helpless. I got no power. And this person now gets to appear on my feed whenever they feel like it, and I can't do anything about it. Then, and this is where the healing starts showing up and starts peeking its head, I had a different thought, which was, wait a second. No, I'm not stuck. I can totally block her. And when I do, this share is going to go away. And at first, I felt a little bit guilty about taking that step. And I had to remind myself, like, who are we talking about? Someone who harassed you, abused you, and treated me with so much disrespect and contempt? Yeah, no, I'm not gonna feel guilty for this person. They don't deserve to be following my stuff and they don't get to have power over me. And I blocked them. Before my lunch break was over, they were blocked. The share went right away. And now I know they can't see anything with Hello Trauma Brain tagged on it. And I'm really glad I did that. It brought such a sense of power back to me. And that is the part that felt empowering. And that's why I wanted to share this with you, because I want to keep it real. Like, even when the posts are doing well, like, stuff sometimes is happening in the background. And now I'm becoming even more aware of the fact that some of the people that I follow, when they're doing well on social media, that doesn't mean that their lives are going perfectly well. Like, stuff is also happening on their end. And I feel like it is important to share this side of the thing, because I don't want to just portray this image of I am healed, and though I have C-PTSD, I'm living my best life and I am thriving. Nope. Not that I don't thrive sometimes, and not that life can get better, because it has been, but also stuff like this happens and it triggers me and it doesn't feel great. And I'm not gonna lie, for a bit, I was like, did that ruin launch day for me? Did that ruin this moment of sharing this episode I worked so hard to make happen? I spent so much time editing it and giving it so much love and creating the promotional content. And I love that conversation so much. Is it ruined? And here's the thing, it wasn't. But I didn't quite feel it until I did this thing. A few episodes back, I had a conversation with Ali Boyce, and we basically talked about CPTSD and how it shows up for singing. And I will link those episodes to the show notes. And that's another conversation that I enjoyed so much. And spoiler alert, one of the exercises that Ali shared is what I now call the magic trio. So here's how I did the magic trio. I got home from work on Thursday, and I already was like, that second half of the day, I was not feeling very good with everything that had happened. And I knew that something needed to be done. Like, I needed to take care of my inner kiddo the moment I got home, because I didn't want her to be feeling so bad. And I wanted us to get out of that ickiness. And I wanted to get back to celebrating and enjoying the episode we had just released. So I got home and immediately laid out my yoga mat, grabbed my stuffed manatee called Rainbow Keeper, and I am hugging my manatee. I'm laying down on my mat, and I am basically caressing each arm with my opposite hand, because I was hugging Skeeper. And I'm doing that motion. You can also do tapping, but if you are a survivor of physical abuse, that might be triggering. It definitely is for me. So that's why I'm just softly caressing each arm. And that's bilateral stimulation. That's one of the three things that this magic trio can use to our benefit. The second thing was, in my mind, I was talking to my inner kiddo, like, what's going on? Do you remember a time when you felt like this before? When you were growing up? Validate her experience, validate why she feels so scared and she felt so hopeless. And remind her, like, we are not hopeless anymore. I blocked her. I took care of it. If they find another way to get through and weasel their way back in, I'm going to stop it. We're not going to be stuck with this, not on my watch. And I'm so angry at the people that set you up to even attract people like that and open up to people like that and trust people like that. So angry at the people that set us up to suffer like this, at the people that treated you like this before. And also, I will keep stopping that. We were no contact. We're not talking to them right now. Nobody's abusing you. Not on my watch. I'm going to take care of it. And that's the inner kiddo parenting, which basically verbalizing one of the techniques from the RRP modality, which is the relationship recovery process. And usually this is done in writing, but I was just saying it in my head while I am doing bilateral stimulation. And then I started humming. And humming is the third part of the trio, which is stimulating the vagus nerve. And I'm just doing this and I'm humming. Another thing I want to add to the humming part is, when you take breaths in between each humming, take a deep breath right at the top. Take a quick, extra deep breath. So you're taking like 2 in a row, and then start humming. And the reason you want to do that extra second quick inhale is because it actually signals to your brain that you are not in danger and helps reduce the anxiety. I forget how it works in terms of the neurobiology of it, but I've heard neurobiologists suggest that technique and it can be very effective. And I had set a timer for 5 minutes. And here's the thing. That timer had not even gone off, y'all. In less than 5 minutes, my nervous system had already calmed down and just it almost felt like somebody turned off the switch on the emergency mode and everything was just okay. And I did not feel so overwhelmed and I didn't feel so taken over. And though I had been in some shame spirals through the day and all the things, and even though it wasn't completely gone 100%, here's what I will say. It turned around the rest of my day. I feel more empowered the rest of my day. I went back to being able to check my phone and not being scared that I was going to see yet another share from this person. I was able to go back to celebrating and embracing and just enjoying. A really big win for the podcast. And that I'm super proud of. And I wanted to share it with you because I feel like these little things, sometimes like these exercises, they can really make a big difference. Okay, so that's the check-in. Let's dive into this week's episode. Pride. It's all about pride. For those of you that are new, I did not know I was queer until I went no contact with my abusers. And this was a few months after being no contact. And I have this theory that just like betrayal blindness can cause a brain not to register the abuse when that person abusing is essential to your survival, a similar thing happens with your authentic self. If there are parts of you that you cannot embody because it would make it dangerous to be in relationship with the person you depend to survive, your brain will almost hide all that information and all those things about yourself in order to make the relationship continue and make it for you to be able to stay there. Though looking back now, there were so many signs, so many little moments where I was like, oh my gosh, it was right there. It was right there. I didn't quite become able to not only realize it, but embrace it, embody it, live it, accept it until a few months after I went no contact. And let me tell you, that has been one of the most joyous gifts I have found in my healing. There's so many things that I have found, but that was a really big part of me. And it's so sad and I'm so grieving the fact that I lived a whole lifetime not being able to be myself fully in that way. And also I get to now be that and embrace it and celebrate it and take it in. I even feel different recording this than when I recorded episode 28 when I came out in the podcast. I remember being scared back then about, is it going to cost me followers? And it's not like that's a thought that's gone, but it doesn't worry me as much. Like, I really don't care if somebody unfollows me because of me being queer. This space was not for them. Off you go, bye. I don't want you here. Not if you're going to discriminate against me or anyone in my community. I also felt like I was so new back then to the whole coming out thing that it's hard to describe it. And what I want to do in this episode is share the things that I have found helpful, because I feel like it took me a minute to gather all the pieces that I even have now so far. And I'm not done collecting pieces, but I feel like if I could go back and give myself an episode that has a lot of the things that I would find useful, it would be this. And this is why I decided to make this episode this year. I feel like last year I was still so new and I didn't know so much that it didn't even occur to me to start an episode like this. And quite frankly, I don't know what I would have said to myself or what I would have added to it, because again, I still didn't know. But now I feel like this year I am embodying more confidence and more of myself. And I have to say, compared to other years, like this is maybe the first year where I'm feeling like a proper member of the queer community and I'm feeling more at home with my identity and I'm starting to feel more comfortable and also like I'm making more progress. So though I have a few reminders of things that I don't want to forget saying, this is pretty much going to be what comes to me. Things that I found helpful to hear. And they came from so many places: shows, podcasts, movies, just gems that would come in unexpected ways. You do not owe anyone your story, how you identify, and a coming out to them. There's not a single person on this planet that is entitled to that. You get to choose how you do this. You get to make your own rules. There's no right or wrong way to go about this. There is no one size fits for all. This can become one of the things that you get to map out and to share as you see fit. And this one came from Heartstopper, and another one that came from Heartstopper, which is a lovely show that I love. And if you're looking for any queer shows, this one is on the top of my list. I remember one of the characters, Charlie, telling Nick, like, when you come out, there's like this pressure that people put on you to like, you need to come out to everybody like immediately and you owe it to them. You don't. You really don't. You can take your time. I kind of felt that pressure at the beginning, and I started doing coming outs to, at first, people that I thought were safe, one of them being that harasser. And when I started getting some negative responses to my coming out, and actually 2 of them were queer people, and that was something that I completely took for granted and was not aware of until it happened to me. I remember as a result putting the brakes on the coming out. And something that has been useful is becoming aware of the power of discernment. And this next thing was very helpful with beginning to discern who was safe and who was not safe. And this is paying attention and looking at the data. How have the people in your life behaved when queerness comes up, either in a show or in conversation or in any setting? Let's just say you're watching a movie and a queer character is now on screen. How do they react? They start criticizing that character? Do they start talking ill about the queer community? Are they supportive? Are they glad that there's representation? How do they behave? There's this therapist called Eli. I forget her last name. Hang on. I can find out. Mm-hmm. True story. I just had to do a magic trio. I got triggered. Okay. Let's get back to this. Now, this next one I got from Eli Hartwood. She is a therapist and also an author. She has written at this point 2 parenting books. One of them is called Securely Attached, and her Instagram is Attachment Nerd. I will link that to the show notes. At one point, I remember Eli doing a post, and because her content is for parenting, the post was addressed to the parents. And this was a post I saw a while ago, so I don't remember exactly how she said it word by word, but it was something along the lines of, when a kid is scared of coming out to their parents, it might not necessarily be because the parents said, you can't come out to me, even though some parents do that. It could also be related with how you have shown your kid you behave around queerness. So if your kid has seen you making fun of queer people in your community or in media, if you have said things that are negative about the queer community or how they need to be converted or anything, if you have said in front of your kid things that are harmful or threatening to the queer community, that can be enough for your kid to be scared to come out to you because you're showing that you're not safe. And I took that and I started applying it to everybody in my life. So I started taking a look back at how have I seen this person act around queerness in front of me? Have they made fun of members of the LGBTQIA plus community in front of me? Have they been critical of the queer community? Have they complained when letters get added? Do they get angry when they hear of a country or a state that is now allowing same-sex marriages? Do they get outraged when the queer community is getting targeted? Or do they not care? Do they gossip about people that come out as queer like that's a bad thing? Behavior is data. And the history of your behavior will tell a story about the likelihood of your future behavior. It's not completely set in stone. People can change. I definitely have changed. I grew up in Puerto Rico in a very heavily Roman Catholic community that was very homophobic, and I shamefully laughed at the jokes back then. Here's the thing. The same applies to me. Somebody who saw me laughing at those jokes could have used that back then to determine that I wasn't safe at the time. And they were right. I wasn't safe at the time. Not fully safe. And I'm not saying that if you have messed up or if you've seen someone messed up that they can't change it around, but you need data. I now do all I can to show how safe I am now. I wasn't 100% safe when I was a teenager. I started turning things around in college, and my behavior now is very different. And if someone would have seen me in my teenage years and not chosen to come out to me back then because they had seen my behavior or they had seen how I reacted around people who were very harmful, I would have to accept it because back then I wasn't safe. And I can tell you this, and I'm not going to be enabling and justifying people like that. And if, like me, in the past, you didn't know any better and you've messed up, like I have, that doesn't mean we're doomed. That means that we now need to start turning things around. And now I engage in behavior that screams, I don't care how you identify, what your sexual orientation is, who you are, what the color of your skin is, where you come from. You are safe here. If you are going to be targeting and harming people, you are not going to be in here. You are not considered safe, and I don't want to fawn to make you feel comfortable. I'm not doing it. And I started to look at other people's behavior and I let that guide me. And I did stop coming out to people that I knew before I started healing in a significant way. And part of it is those relationships have faded. And the other part was I've had to cut off some really crucial people in my life. And I can only lose so many people, honestly. And I kind of had to give myself a break from putting myself in situations where the likelihood of being discarded was high. And that's okay. I feel like we need to honor what feels safe to us and what feels like we need at the moment. I feel like compared to other people that come out later in life, and I do consider myself someone who came out later in life. Now, when it comes to my coming out and me exploring my queerness and all that, it has been a really slow process. And in my case, that happened because my queerness bloomed from a period of my life of a lot of grief and a lot of pain. I had cut off the main abusers, which were a big part of my life. I was dealing with a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, a lot of pain, because I was coming to terms with how much they had abused me and how much pain I had suffered and how much pain I was still enduring, even though they were cut off. And to be honest, even my coming out at first, it was very grief filled. To realize that I was queer in my mid 30s, to know that I had missed out on my teenage years, college years, early adult years, I had missed out on so many opportunities and so many connections. I realized recently, and this is one of those things like when they say when you look back, things start to make sense. Like I understand what that means now. I remember in college when they would start announcing the Pride events coming for June for the school, and I remember getting more OCD and like really getting stuck on OCD spirals around that right before June timeframe and then June. And looking back now, it was because I was experiencing shame and fear. Because I remember back then having a feeling that I might be attracted to girls, and I even told two people, and that did not go well. And it was kind of that authentic self blindness thing where it just went back into hiding, but it would peek in as OCD spirals. And I realized recently how scared I used to be of the month of June. And there are a few other reasons why June also became a triggering month for a long time. And I'm still reclaiming that. But I used to be scared of June in terms of being Pride Month back in college. And to take in this year that I was excited for June to come. Like, I'm excited for the fact that today, as I record this, is June 1st. So today is Pride Month kickoff day. And to actually enjoy the start of June, like it's a revelation to me, honestly, that this year I'm feeling excited about this month. And it feels good to take it back and reclaim it and now make it an exciting time of the year for me and for my inner kiddo. I wish I could have been one of those people who came out as queer and started dating and exploring and immediately joined their local queer group and did all the things right away. I wasn't one of those people. Part of healing from complex PTSD is coming to terms with the fact that it's relational trauma and how triggering relationships are. And the concept, especially back when I came out, the concept of introducing a whole new community, a whole different set of people in my life all at once, then now I had to suss out and interact with all the triggers popping out of the woodworks. And when you are healing from narcissistic abuse specifically, especially at the beginning, you are so scared to meet new people, especially when you're in that stage where you're still discerning or struggling to discern who's safe and who's not. Like the idea of a whole community of new people, so daunting, so scary. And I definitely did not jump right into that. It took me a long time. And it took me a minute before I could even attend a event. And I remember doing an event a few months ago, and then I didn't do another one for many months after. And it's because, again, I'm not just coming out as queer. I am also healing from complex trauma. I am completely taking apart everything I knew about myself, about the world, about relationships. It is such a big process. It is okay for you to take your time. If you are like me and you did not jump into the communities and into the dating thing and to all the queer stuff right away within a few weeks, you're not alone. Some things that I have been doing this year that have been very helpful. It is not that I would say that I wish I would have done them sooner. I think I started doing them exactly when I needed to, but there are things that you might want to try when you feel safe enough to do so, when it feels comfortable for you. I can't say this enough. This is your timeline. When you begin trying any of these things is completely up to you. You don't have to try all of these things at once. There is no deadline. You try any of these things, if any, as it feels right to you. One of the things that I did very early on was I started watching shows and movies with queer stories. I feel like that was one of the first stepping stones I was able to do because I could do it on my own. And I feel like seeing the representation in the content was its own way of healing and of feeling more seen, and also taking in how it was safe for me to watch that content because I even had trauma with that. I still need to reclaim this. I remember I was watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This is back when I was in I don't know, middle school ish, middle school, high school years. And there is a queer story in that show, and there's this one episode where two female characters kiss. And that was a little bit more of a big deal back then, especially. One of my abusers was in the room when I saw that scene, and they raged and screamed and threw a fit for the ages. And they banned the show, and I was not allowed to watch Buffy anymore. And I was one of those kids who did not have much of a rebellious bone in me at the time. And I was told I couldn't watch it, and I didn't watch it. And I do know how it ended because it got spoiled eventually online, or people that I knew talked about it. But that is one of those shows that I do want to go back and experience because I feel like I want to watch it, and I want to be able to watch it in a safe room where nobody's going to rage at me and ban the show. And even that experience of seeing shows and movies in my safe home now. And even notice that sometimes I still feel the shame where I would feel like I'm doing something wrong. Like that still creeps up. It's getting better, but sometimes I still catch the conditioning catching up with me. And that's another thing that I feel like I haven't heard much about, which is, and I have a feeling I'm not the only person who has experienced this. When I came out, it is not like a switch. It's not like an on and off. Now everything that I have been taught and all the conditioning goes away. And I get to now be queer and embrace it and never feel shame and never feel anything negative ever again. It ain't that clear cut, especially at the beginning. And even the other day, it happened. I am in my apartment by myself watching a show. There are two queer characters that kiss, and I still feel the shame. Like I am doing something wrong. And if so and so was here, they would be throwing a fit right now. And I know exactly what they would be saying, right? And to sit with that and notice it and go, okay. And at the beginning, and I still struggle with this, sometimes the OCD gets triggered and I start going on the OCD spiral. And lately, something that I've been using that came from therapy is like picturing that voice, that inner critic is the abuser's voice, right? And saying to it, fuck off. Fuck off. You don't get to tell me what I get to watch. You don't get to bully me and shame me because you feel shame right now. Fuck off. Still working on that exercise, and I have to say, I think it's doing something. I definitely feel something in terms of helping to untangle some of the shame, and I feel like it's giving me some power back as well. Back to the point I was trying to convey, which is the fact that as a person who most of her life was spent not even knowing that I was queer, getting to the point where I am now embracing my queerness is a thing. This is not happening as much now, but it used to happen a lot more at the beginning. When I started watching queer stories, especially if there was a lesbian story or a sapphic story, I would find myself or catch myself thinking that the female character on the screen was really attractive. And then this like pin of shame would get triggered. And I would have the thought of, wait, what are you doing? You're supposed to be looking at the men. And then I would go, wait a second. I'm bi now. I can actually look at the women and think that they're attractive, and I can enjoy that, and I can totally admire them. And I don't have to be forcing myself to look at the quote unquote men on the screen. Revelation, y'all. It happened so many times. I feel like it might still happen here and there, but definitely at the beginning, I caught myself almost forgetting that I was queer. That's what it is. Like you, you come out and you are constantly re-coming out to yourself. Like a few months after you've come out, you have that experience. Like you're watching the TV show and then you're like, oh, that's right, I am queer. I can actually pine over the woman on the screen and think how cute they look and how awesome it would be if I got to date somebody like that. And I think that's the conditioning, right? That's the conditioning coming back online again. That conditioning of you're not supposed to be queer. You're not supposed to be looking at the woman on the screen. You're not supposed to feel attracted to the woman on the screen. And I feel like it also happens in person. It's wild. It's almost like my brain will forget for a moment that I've come out. And you have to keep reminding yourself that it is safe now. It's not only reminding yourself that you're queer, but that it is safe to be queer. And that's a really hard thing to do, especially in the times that we live in, where the queer community is so marginalized and targeted constantly and shamed. It's really hard to deprogram conditioning that's still getting pushed out there and still getting spread and shoved down people's throats. But let me tell you, worth it. The feeling you get, because here's the thing, when I remember that I am queer now, I get to re-experience that moment of joy of, oh, that's right. And it's almost like coming out to myself again in this bittersweet way, because there's this joy and also the grief of realizing how deep this goes, that it continues to get hidden in your brain. And it's sad too. The next thing that I did was start to follow social media, educators, other queer people. And I feel like hearing somebody talk openly about their experiences would help me realize things that I had not realized yet and that I don't think I would have realized on my own. And that was super helpful. And again, one of those things that you're able to do them on your own, and it can be a little step that can help. And it's something that also models what safe support from a fellow queer person can look like. Now, this next thing I started doing in recent months, and I do wish that I would have started this sooner because it has been really helpful, and that is listening to podcasts about the queer experience. And in my case, because I am sapphic, hearing a sapphic podcast has been really helpful to help me understand my experience and learn a lot of things that I just didn't know. There's a podcast that I have found super helpful, and it started recently this year, and it's called Simply Sapphic. The hosts are Amanda and Allison, and they basically have created the podcast they wish they would have had when they came out. So if you have been enjoying this episode and you want to hear a podcast where that is what the podcast is, it's all about coming out of Sapphic and exploring coming out of Sapphic and all the Sapphic things, that's a really good listen. There is another podcast that is about to come out. For me, it's coming out tomorrow. When this episode comes out, it will be out. And it's actually a podcast from one of the guests that Simply Sapphic had that I have been following for quite a bit on Instagram. The podcast is called Out in Bloom. And this podcast is hosted by Eva Bloom. Eva is a sex educator. And I am actually recording this bit after I've had a chance to listen to the first episode. I loved it. So relatable, especially if you are someone who came out late like me and Eva. And it's a great listen. I also enjoyed the episode that Eva did with Simply Sapphic. I will go ahead and link both podcasts to my show. And in your case, however you identify, if you look for a podcast or even a YouTube channel, I have found YouTube channels helpful. And I think at this point, what might be helpful is finding the content that caters to how you identify. To hear someone who identifies as you and how they experience things can be very validating. And it's just a way of receiving support in a way that you get to control, because you get to play the content as you feel comfortable with it. And I feel like that also can help reduce some of the shame, I feel like a lot of things that I thought I was experiencing, when I hear Amanda and Allison saying that they're also experiencing that, it's like there's that point where I go, oh, okay, so there's nothing wrong with me. This is actually normal. And you can feel a little bit of that shame dropping, which can open up the space for you to start feeling joyous about your experience and feeling like there's nothing wrong with you, because there isn't. So, one of the things that I started doing more recently, and this is what I am actively working on right now, is building an in person community. Since the whole narcissistic abuse world came crashing down on me, a lot of my connections have changed. I went on isolation mode for a long time and was barely seeing people in person. The people that I got close to were very far away. It was more of a virtual thing, which felt safe at the time. But I'm at a point in my healing where I want to have an in person community. And I started going to events from local queer groups and making connections there. And though it feels like a risk, and it's not like I have 25 new friends or 100 new friends, it is making one-on-one connections and just starting to practice that in-person socializing. It feels really good. I am really hopeful and really excited to keep exploring this, because I feel like I am at this point overdue in having some local friends that are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. And with the current state of the world, it feels even more relevant and more necessary to build that community now, since there's a lot of abuse, targeting, threats, direct attempts to try to make us disappear. It's relentless. The hate, that's it. The hate is so loud right now. And I feel like community has become so key in combating that hate that just won't stop coming. About that, in side note, always blows my mind how the hate is so strong and the queer community just keeps showing up with love and respect and civility. And it just blows my mind how one of the kindest communities gets targeted like this relentlessly for the most absurd reasons. Just, yeah, I will never understand it. Some of the things that I'm working on now that I plan on being more mindful about is looking for inclusive spaces. As I have been engaging in more community and events, I try to be very mindful about spaces that are inclusive. And I know what I'm about to say is going to sound like, how can this be? But it can be, sadly. Not all LGBTQIA plus community events or groups welcome every single member of that community. There are groups that are exclusive. There are groups that don't want to acknowledge the trans community. There are groups that don't want to acknowledge the non-binary community. There are groups that discriminate and talk about other members of the community that identify differently in a derogatory way. I have experienced it firsthand. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've heard it with my own ears. I don't understand it. Even in my case, as a bisexual person, I am aware that there are people that do not acknowledge bisexual people. And there are a lot of myths and a lot of misconceptions, like bisexual people being confused or things like that. And I'm not confused. I am still figuring things out. And quite frankly, sometimes I do vacillate between being pansexual and being bisexual. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about assigning a label and having that label permanently. The purpose and the whole point of it is about being able to express yourself as you ebb and flow through your life. And it's something that I am being very careful and I'm paying attention to as I look for events is, are they including the actual community, the full community, without excluding anybody? If they're excluding people, that's not my group. If they're inclusive and welcoming, let's go. Today, as Pride Month kicks off, something that I got from Simply Sapphic is the idea of start my own queer book collection. And I officially started my collection. I went to a queer-owned bookstore today, Pocket Books. I almost started crying there. It was so emotional to see a bookstore with queer books everywhere and just beautiful and welcoming and soothing. They had a children's room and my inner kiddo was like ecstatic about it. And I got my inner kiddo a Bluey book and I got my first queer book. And it's a sapphic romance and I already started reading it. I went to the park with my inner kiddo and we read a few pages of the Bluey book and I started my sapphic romance and I'm loving it so far. And I'm really excited about starting this collection. And I'm really excited about embodying more queerness and just bringing queerness into my life, into my home space, just everything. I want to be as loudly queer as I can be. And even though I'm not gonna lie, when I was in public reading the book, I was scared to take the book out of the bag. Like that happened. Like I still get the fear, which was conditioned there. And I have to like sit with that uncomfortable feeling and notice the shame that comes up and then go, of course you feel scared. Of course, you were programmed to be scared. But we're gonna try the new thing anyway. We're gonna take the book out of the bag and we're gonna read it. And we were able to read and nothing happened to us. Nobody came at us. Nobody abused us. It takes time. It takes so much time. I couldn't go to an official Pride event last year. That was very sad. But this year, I calendared the Pride events early on. The moment I found out, I did not accept any gigs. I am not working any of those days and I am going to go. And the only thing that could stop me at this point is if the weather creates for those events to not happen. And I really hope that the weather is just as beautiful as we deserve for it to be because I am really excited. And this is going to be the last thing that I will share in terms of tools. Go to a Pride event and take in how lovely the community is. There's something about going to a Pride event and seeing people wearing the flag, being proud, colorful, bold, just owning who they are. It's so inspiring. It's so touching. I went to my first Pride event. It's going to be 2 years ago now. And there's nothing like it. I'm so excited to go again. I'm sure there will be protesters again. And the first time it was scary. This year I am expecting it and I won't be surprised. It's going to be like that radical acceptance, probably going to be there. And yeah, they can go fuck themselves because I'm going to go and enjoy that event. And I am feeling more empowered. Not that I am fully not afraid at all, because of course, but these days I'm reaching this point of just being fed up with letting fear stop me from experiencing things, letting fear rob me from life, from joy, from living. And we'll see how it goes. Whether you are queer, an ally, learning, unlearning, all the conditioning, I want to say to you, no matter how you are a member of this community, and though I identify as queer, I'm even aware of the fact that queer can be triggering for some of the members of the community. If they experienced that word as a way of demeaning them and abusing and treating them in a derogatory way, it's going to be triggering. And as I said here, I know that the history is so complicated and it's so painful, and we all have our own unique journeys and our own unique ways of experiencing the LGBTQIA plus community and what it stands for. I know it's a really hard time right now. And to any members and allies of the community, what I want to say is I invite you to support each other, to be the voice of support, of validation, to be the voice that helps reduce the shame. Let's be curious. There's not a single person on this planet that understands every single thing about everything. If there's something that is new to you and you don't understand it, I invite you to have curiosity, to listen, to learn, to take in the experience of other people. I feel like expectations don't have much of a place when it comes to how to come out, how to embody your full self. I feel like there's no rule book on how to come out, how to embody being your full self. And understanding that it changes. Your identity, your sexuality, think about it like a spectrum. Like it can be anywhere on the spectrum and it can shift as you grow, as you change, as you mature. Nothing's set in stone. I want to thank you for listening, and I want you to know that there's a place for you here. I want this to be a safe space for you, and I am very proud to be bisexual, to be queer, and I'm proud of you for being here. And I am not going anywhere. In this week's healing invitation, I want to offer you a few things to reflect about. Whether you are a member or ally of the LGBTQIA plus community, I invite you to reflect on how you can show up and support this community. We are facing a lot of direct threats, and I feel like our voices need to be louder than ever. Please choose something that feels right and safe to you. Support a locally queer owned business, volunteer, help spread awareness of queer resources. I will link some to the show notes that you are welcome to share. I invite you to think about how you can show your support this month and also remind you that we need your support all year round. Please let me know in the comments how this week's healing invitation goes if you choose to accept it. Before we wrap up this episode, all music and production is courtesy of yours truly. Also, I want to share a few ways you can support this podcast. You can subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or the platform that you are using to listen. Share this episode with anyone you think could find this podcast helpful. Subscribe to the Hello Trauma Brain YouTube channel and hit the notification bell to be the first to know when I post a new episode. And you can make a donation via PayPal. I want to thank you in advance for your support. A little can go a very long way in helping the podcast reach more survivors that could benefit from finding this content. No worries, all links will be provided in the show notes. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you found this episode helpful. I wish you the best as you celebrate Pride Month. It is time for our farewell affirmations. I invite you to repeat after me. I welcome the belief that I am enough. I am lovable. And I deserve to heal. I wish you a gentle week and thank you for your presence.